You're listening to The Next 15, a podcast show for the binge listener covering random topics such as relationships, current news, and everyday life issues. My name is Trey North, and for the next few minutes, I hope to make you laugh, educate, and inspire you. Welcome to the Next 15 podcast show. It's Trey North, and you know what time it is. It's 7 o'clock Friday, and it's time for another episode of the Next 15 podcast show. And tonight, I am joined, of course, by my esteemed co-host, Chris McAllister.
Yo, everybody, what's going on? It's good to be back in the saddle. Happy November, everybody.
And we are also joined by our second co-host. I said third because it's three of us, but our second co-host, it's Ty Hosey, all the way from Dallas, Texas. What up, Ty?
What's up, everybody? You've worked all day. It's time to play.
I like that right there.
I know. Hey, do we got the chat room up and everything?
Yep.
Hey, okay. Oh, I see people in the chat room. Okay. So thank y'all so much for tuning in and coming in the chat room. We want to first, before I get started, I have to thank the listeners in Austin, Texas, Houston, Dallas, Tyler, and my international India and Brazil and Paris. Yep. We hope we don't forget anybody, but we just want to give a big shout out to them. I don't think I have given a shout out to our international listeners.
Yeah.
Want to give a shout out to Rod Garrett and Shamika Yarbrough, Andrea Clark. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Well, we got a great show for you tonight, guys. Last week we did Lost in Translation. We had a great episode. What do y'all think about that?
I think we had a great show, man. I love the response from the people, as always, man. But we were able to actually talk on some serious notes, but we did it kind of funny, man. And I always love the response of the people, dude. They just keep me rolling.
Yeah, man.
Man, and I think it's always good when you can clear up those awkward moments. And I think we kind of shed some light on it. And I think we walked away feeling like we needed to be more honest about our intentions with people.
Yeah, I think so, man. If you haven't heard it or you want to hear the replay, it's called Lost in Translation. Go to next15podcast.com is where you'll find that episode and all of the other episodes. This episode, after we get through airing it, this is a live show, an interactive show, so feel free to get in the chat room and talk about the subject tonight. And if you have any questions, you can talk about those. You can ask those. We'll have our chat line opening up pretty soon. Don't forget to follow us at Next 15 Podcast on Instagram and Facebook platforms. But tonight is the beginning of our 3-part series entitled Who Am I? Man. Yeah, so tonight, check it out. In this episode of our 3-part series, we'll be talking about self-esteem and how others view you as a person, which may not necessarily reflect who you are. But we'll be discussing the dangers of comparing and wanting to be like other people, and how that can influence you to become someone that you're not designed to be.
Right.
So tonight, my co-host and I, we just hope that we can give you some clarity and encourage you at the same time as we talk about the subject, I am not your opinion. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the dangers of comparison. Ty, you want to start us off with that?
Yeah, I do. The dangers of comparison. And I think the best place to start here is first knowing who you are. And I know that can be a battle, and I know that can be stressful, trying to figure out who you are. And let's deal with the fact that background and upbringing have a lot to do with being lost, and have a lot to do with, comparison and all of that. And all I can think about, is I think about the people who work at McDonald's, who work at fast food restaurants, who I think about all the custodians that I see every single day at my job. And man, I've seen some custodians, man, they're sweeping floors and they're smiling, and they're brightening my day. And it just makes me think, man, what if we didn't have people like that who were just, who just accepted where they are in life right now. Right. And we didn't have people who wasn't always trying to go back and forth forth between this trend, this phase, and that phase, and this phase.
Right.
And I think when you compare yourself, you start to jump out of those experiences that you need through life, because you're always seeing yourself through the lens of another person.
Yeah.
And you could be comparing yourself to someone who made themselves not be internally whole.
Wow.
But you don't see the internal, all you see is the external. And because 9 times out of 10 we are comparing ourselves to someone who has more, and someone who we feel like has achieved more than ourselves. And so I think that's where, if we start with the comparisons, that's where we must begin. Is, why do you see them as a person to compare yourself to?
That's good.
That's good. That's good,
Yeah.
man. I like that, man. That's good. You got
that's-
anything to add to that,
Yeah,
Chris?
that's real good. And so let me add to that, man. And then on top of that, sometimes we compare ourselves to people that other people say we should compare ourselves to. It's not even the fact that we thought that we should compare ourselves, but just because we were going into the same line of work as somebody. You know what I mean? So, like, for instance, if I'm going to go play basketball, the automatic comparison is going to be, right now, is LeBron James. Back in our day, is Michael Jordan.
Right.
You know what I mean? Only because I'm playing basketball.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, they're considered the greatest of, the greats, I will say, and one's considered the greatest of all times. But why are they the comparison for my game? And so we look at that in life, why am I comparing myself to somebody that I deem or other people deem successful? Because my version of success and their version of success could be totally two different things.
Oh, man, that's
Exactly.
good. That's good, bro. You're right. And the dangers of comparing yourself to another is their lifestyle might not be tailor fit for you. It's tailor fit made for them.
Right.
I can remember when I had a health challenge and I made a goal for myself of running a 5K.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was running it was thousands of people.
Yeah.
It was a Brookshire's health. What was it? Brookshire's 5K or whatever it was.
Yeah. Health.
But the point I'm trying to make is that I trained for the race that was tailor fit for me.
Yeah.
And there were people that were faster than me. There were people that were more experienced than me.
Right.
But if I was comparing myself to them or trying to run at their pace,
Right.
I would never have gotten finished. You know what I mean? I had to run that 5K based on what I trained for, based on
good.
and comparing myself to them.
That's good.
There was none. And then I found myself when I was actually running that race, I was kind of watching people like they were starting off fast and they were running. They wasn't pacing themselves. Now, had I started running just as fast as them, I wouldn't have finished. And come to find out that I actually finished number 5 in my category, in my age category. I'm 48.
Wow.
I was 46 then, and it was 2,000 other 40-year-olds running that race.
Wow.
But I was watching people pass me by, and I was like, oh, and something was telling me, hey, man, look at them. They're leaving you. They're dusting you. But when we got to that after that first mile, bro, I started seeing them. They had stopped or started walking. So if I was comparing you know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to say basically, man, is when you're comparing yourself to others, you have to really understand it. Hey, that's the shoes that they are in.
Right.
That might not be necessarily the shoes that I need to be in. Yeah. So I'm okay with being me. I'm okay with being where I am in life. You know what I'm saying? And not trying to fulfill the shoes that don't belong to me.
Yeah. And I think a dangerous comparison as well, to give another example and to be a little bit more specific in this area as well, because I think a lot of people compare their bodies to someone else's body.
That's good.
And I think everyone is kind of caught up in this situation, or you have been at some point, to where you said, I need to drop a few pounds, or I wish these were bigger, or I wish that was bigger.
Right.
And so what do we see people doing now? They're going out and getting injections and tucks and lifts and all these different things. And this is all dangerous comparisons. And, even with myself, to make this a little bit more personal, going on my own fitness journey, And I have to realize, and I think one of the things that'll get me through this time is the fact that even though I started, and they say it's always good to have an image
Yeah.
of what you want to look like,
Yeah.
that people always say vision boards and different things like that.
Yeah.
You may not exactly look like that person when you're done.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you are comparing yourself to positive things, like what is my health now compared to what it was 6 months ago?
Right.
Right.
So if you start comparing, making healthy comparisons, and my thing is, we always flock to negative comparisons, unhealthy comparisons.
Mm.
So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
You know what? You just hit something, man, and I'll give a quick example. I went to the doctor today, man, in regards to that, man, and we're just kind of I'm starting my health journey. At that point, and the numbers that I got back was kind of, I'm not gonna say surprising, but the comparison in my mind, I'm not gonna lie to you, I use him as an example all the time, is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Dwayne "The Rock."
Obsessed with Dwayne Johnson.
I am, because my wife is obsessed with him. So it's like, I'm gonna look like him one day. I'm gonna be bald, and I'm gonna grow 4 more inches.
Yeah.
Well, so Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is about he's about 6'4", 6'5", something like that, and he weighs like 260. Solid muscle, right? Well, I'm 5'10", and I weigh the same 260. I look nothing like the Rock, Dwayne Johnson. And the crazy thing is like, I started comparing myself, like, how did I get to this place? You know what I mean? And I started comparing, myself to people that I know, like how did I let this happen? I know that I don't eat like they eat, so how I look the way I look, and they look the way they look, and it hit me. My doctor said, you know what? Don't ever compare yourself, because some things you are just not built for.
Right, that's true.
You see what I'm
Come
saying?
on, Doc.
And so I will never be a Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. You mean? And I could be the best Chris McAllister I can possibly be as I get in shape, but it will never be Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
You are the only Chris McAllister.
I was just about to say that your DNA is unique,
right?
And you can only be you. The reason why you don't look like the Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is because you won't let the Twizzlers and the Reese Cups go. I'm just messing with you.
That too, and the pork chops and
that's a dangerous thing to compare yourself to, man. That also brings about, and I know we're going to talk about this later in the show, but that also brings about self-esteem issues.
Yes,
and that's wanting to be like other people and then judging yourself by their standards. I tell you what, that's really good. Let's talk about that. We're going to go to a commercial break, but let's talk about wanting to be like other people and judging yourself by other standards when we come back right here on the Next 15. Hey, this is Trey North with the Next 15 podcast show, and I want to invite you to listen to my special 3-part podcast series entitled Who Am I? Me and my special co-host Chris McAllister and Ty Hosey will be discussing topics on self-esteem, abusive relationships, men's mental health awareness, and much more. We'll be joined by special guest co-hosts who will share their transparency in regards to their own personal lives. If you or someone you know are battling self-esteem issues from past experiences and need a little help in your journey putting the pieces back together, or needing some encouraging words of wisdom to help put things back into perspective, then join us Friday live at 7 p.m. on Spreaker.com for this 3-part podcast series entitled Who Am I? To listen, go to www.Spreaker.com and search the Next 15 for live interactive chat, or www.next15podcast.com. Who Am I? A 3-part podcast series only on the Next 15 podcast show with Trey North. Follow us at Next 15 Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter platforms. I'll see you this Friday night live at 7 p.m. on the Next 15. You're listening to the Next 15 Podcast show with Trey North on Spreaker.com. We're back with the Next 15 podcast show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. If you're just coming in late, tonight's subject is I Am Not Your Opinion, part of a 3-part series of Who Am I? And we just got through talking about the dangers of comparison. And now we're going to go into wanting to be like other people, judging yourself by other standards. Ty. Ty's our guy tonight. We put Ty kind of in a. I put him in a co-pilot seat because this is one of the topics that he wanted to talk about. So he's kind of like co-produced this show. So Ty, let's go for it.
I mean, and thank you for that. So guys, I heard Bishop Jakes. I listened to Bishop Jakes quite a bit, and he did an episode recently to where he talked about staying in your own lane. Yeah. And we all have a lane, guys. We each one of us were created for a purpose, and we all have a lane. And if you really search your heart, you start to understand what you like, your desires, what really gets your blood boiling, what really makes you passionate, and you begin to discover these things the longer that you live. Yeah. And the dangers of comparison and trying to live up to other people's standards is it may not be your lane. That may not be your lane. Yeah. Just like when we were talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, there's only one. And he's in his lane. That's why he's so good at it. He's so great at what he does. When you look at somebody like Kevin Hart, and nobody's been able to duplicate Kevin Hart, by the way. Right. Okay, I'll give you that. But when you look at Kevin Hart, he stays in his lane, and that is funny. Martin Lawrence, all these comedians, they know what they are good at. And so when we start comparing and living by other people's standards, now we get outside of what we have the potential to be great at. Right.
Yeah. I believe that. I think when we want to, it's almost, and I'm going to take it there. It's almost a discredit to God, because He formed you to be who you are. Exactly. And it's what's really important is that, just like you said, perhaps Kevin Hart was destined to be who he is, and that's. Only he can fulfill those type of shoes. Right. On the other hand, God has a purpose for you in your life. Yeah. And you have to be willing to accept you for who you are and who he created you to be. Yeah. And so when you're trying to fill others' shoes, or you're judging yourself by other people's standards, you're now putting something on you that doesn't belong to you. Right. You're putting extra weight on you that doesn't really need to be there. Right. You know what I mean? And so it's so important that we be ourselves, be the best people that we can be, or be the best person that I can be for myself, based on the standards that God has already set for me, based on who he's created in me. You know what I mean? Yes. So it's so many people that they're listening to other people's opinions, and they're allowing people to set the standard for themselves. Exactly. You know what I mean? And and when you allow people to set standards for you, there might be two different totally type of standards you're dealing with, because what might be a standard for them might not, or a morale issue or morality issue, you might have two different views. I mean, some people voted for Trump, some people voted for Biden. We all are different in our unique way. We should be able to think for ourselves, and we do. It's nothing wrong, I don't think, with maybe taking credible witnesses and patterning ourselves and saying, hey, that's a character trait or something that I believe that, that will help me in the long run. But you just cannot compare yourself or allow yourself to be judged by others and then take what they say about you and say, well, I guess that's who I am. Right. Yeah.
Right. And then with that also, I feel like sometimes the problem really begins at the end of the day. You said it like this. You said it's a discredit to God. The point of the matter is that it goes down to being effective. Yeah. Nobody is as effective as you are doing what you do.
Real talk.
That's good.
You know what
That's
I mean?
good.
And so that was one of my big things. And I'll just give again another example. When I started preaching, the first thing as a preacher you begin to do is, okay, well, how do I need to sound? Who am I going to emulate or imitate, if you will, and all that good stuff. And then what I got real conviction from my pastor, Pastor Mike McClure Jr., and he just told me, be you. You know what I mean? Like get out of the, if you're not a hooper, then don't hoop. If you're not a singer, then don't sing. Do you, and the people that are responsible for hearing your voice and following you will know your voice. And I think that people got to understand that you're created differently because you are created for a specific people and a particular time. And so if you actually get out of that and know you're kind of like Ty said, if you get out of your lane, then there will be people that you're going to miss that you should have had an effect on, and it becomes a domino effect because you were out of place. Now they're out of place, and the person that was supposed to follow them is now out of place. You see what I'm saying?
Where my organ? Dun, dun.
And let me jump in there too and kind of add to that too and say, don't be offended if other people don't agree with you.
Oh man,
don't
so good.
be
That's real.
offended because 9 times out of 10, okay, people are not going to always agree with you, and you need to be okay with that. Like, you need to accept the fact, because I think that sometimes we get caught up in other people's opinions simply because we need them to agree with us or we want to agree with them, instead of going out and forming your own opinion of yourself. Because that is really the only 2 opinions that should matter to you is yours and God. And that's the only 2 opinions. And so if I tell you that I believe I am the best at this, and then you say, nah, I don't think so, I think so-and-so is better than you, then okay, that's your opinion. But I just told you my opinion. So I'm not offended because you don't agree with me. And so we got to accept that as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I agree with what you said about the only 2 opinions that matter. I agree with that. I understand where you're coming from. Now, I will tell you this. I'll take the opinion of my mom. I'll take the opinion of somebody that's credible or that really knows me. That has raised me, or maybe my spouse, if I was married. I would take that opinion. When it comes down to, it depends on what it is, but when it comes down to character or a integral issue or something like that, I would at least take that opinion or listen to that opinion and maybe give it some thought because of that person being credible in my life. And I know that they're not trying to destroy me or to taint who I am. They're just trying to help me, or even my pastor, even you, you know what I'm saying, Chris? So, but we get into this caring about what others think about, us. And then that sometimes, again, I have to go back to self-esteem. That can bring you either up or that can bring you down. It can go either way. I think it's just like the title of this episode is "I'm Not Your Opinion." You might say one thing about me, and like Ty said, I disagree with that. I'm okay with what you say, but it doesn't define who I am. It doesn't take away from who I am and who's the character that I've developed.
And one thing, here's kind of a key that I live by. I'm not going to take constructive criticism from somebody that's never constructed anything ever. You understand? So people have this like they feel like they're helping you with their words of wisdom. But if you haven't done what I'm trying to do, then I'm not trying to hear what you're trying to say. I'm not going to construct, because a lot of people have constructive criticism, but you haven't constructed anything. And so that's an issue for me in that regards.
I want to give a shout out to Gail and Bree Jackson. Thank you so much. I see the comments in here. Gail says a lot of people are constantly seeking validation.
Yeah.
That is true. It's almost as if I need your opinion to be validated.
Right.
If you know, and what you say matters the most. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
That's funny, but it's the truth. People do crave validation.
Yeah.
That's why you see so many people are followers and not the leaders that they were called to be, because they're too busy following the opinions or looking or seeking for the validation from others.
Absolutely. And the crazy thing is that when you are a leader, we have to begin to really understand is you're going to be different. A real leader is going to have a lot of people that don't understand, that's not going to agree, because you are called to do something different, or called to do something that a lot of people haven't done. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In whatever it is that you do. And we always take that as of doing something quote unquote great, but that's, I mean, even how you run your household, you know, like you can run a successful house. And people don't, and that's the stuff that people don't see. You know, everybody wants to be successful on the outskirts where people can give them that validation that everybody talks about. But I'm talking about being successful and then also being great in your house.
Yeah. Ooh, that's good. That's good.
Man.
Yeah. Bree Jackson says that's why it's imperative to validate and speak life into your children so they don't crave it as adults.
Right.
That's a very good
That's
statement, Bree. That's so true. It starts. It does start when you're young.
Yes.
It should start where you're young.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's crucial because of peer pressure. Our children do suffer from validation.
Yeah.
And we have to teach them to be comfortable in their own skin. We have to teach them to, you know, we have to, as parents, validate them based on, you know, the word of God. You know what I'm saying? And so I think like Shamika Yarbrough, I just looked down. She says you got to break generational curses.
Right.
Yeah, I think our kids suffer a lot from self-esteem issues simply because they are trying to seek validation from other peers who are basically basing that validation on something else that they've seen and not even necessarily know anything about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I to touch on that too, just because I'm in that space, it reminds me of a young 13-year-old girl, because I teach 8th graders, and I read some, because I do a lot of journals with the kids, because I always tell them that writing is a form of therapy. And so I always create these topics to where they can write and kind of tell me how they feel. And I had one young lady write and tell me that she felt bad because her mother blamed her every time her mother's relationship did not work. Because some of the men would say, well, it's because you have a kid, or it's because, you know, you can't go out tonight because you don't have anybody, you know, to stay at home with, or she can stay at home by herself. And the mother always being torn between, should I spend more time with my daughter? And then she, you know, even wrote in that journal that my mother will always, sometimes she'll get mad at me and ask me, don't you want me to get married? And don't you want a stepdad? And that kid was carrying so much weight. I had to call her outside of class today. I had to talk to her privately. And I just had to just let her know that is not your issue. Your mother is trying to pass down issues from herself that she has with herself to you. And you're carrying so much of that burden, feeling like it's you and it's not you. And I just had to just speak life into that girl, because you could tell she was carrying that weight. And so it starts young. It really does.
Yeah, it's learned behavior. I mean, that's basically what it is. Hey, I want to open up the phone lines at 512-827-9164. I love to hear from anybody that's out there listening, whether you're in the chat room or not. But the number again, it's 512-827-9164. and you can call in if you feel like it, or you can type us in the chat room. But yeah, I believe it does. It starts young. Ty, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Because our kids are so influenced. They're so influenced. Even compare themselves to public figures. You know what I mean? You know, we've all been there when it comes to. I mean, we're there already. I mean, you know, if and this is no shot because I love Breeze bonnets, but like I've seen bonnets worn in airports. Right. I mean, it's become a style and a fashion. I mean, you know, if Beyonce wore a bonnet last week, you know, somebody's wearing it this week.
Right.
It's
a
fashion statement. It becomes and it becomes, you know, now if you don't have the right type of bonnet, if it ain't, you know what I'm saying, if it ain't the one that Beyonce wore, then it ain't cool and all this kind of stuff, man. And that brings to me that can bring a terror kid's self-esteem down. You know what I mean?
Right. I have a question. Since we're talking about the kids in this manner, I don't want to divide it, but I have a question. And Ty, maybe you can speak better to this as of your profession. But as you see, who deals more with this type of issue? Is it the children as a whole, or do we see it more in the females, in our young ladies versus our young men? Like, could you speak to that, or can somebody in the chat speak to that on something that they've noticed in regards to that?
You know, and if to speak to that from an educator standpoint,
yes, sir.
I think we can throw boys in the mix in here too.
Right.
They deal with it in their own way. I think girls are a little bit more vocal with their opinions than boys are. I think boys kind of treat you a certain way based on their opinion. And so, boys, their behavior and body language can be different. So I think that starting back from the upbringing and these kids becoming adults and never dealing with these kind of issues as kids, and they grow up into adults and have to deal with these issues as well. And so I think that, you know, I would have to say that, you know, our girls are definitely suffering when it comes to opinions, because they're always, you know, girls are always dealing with dating. They're always dealing with somebody, you know, telling them they look this way and telling them they're beautiful, and they're getting so many different opinions and information all the time that they have to try to sort out and weed out. And can you imagine if you go home every day to a mama that's trying to sort out her own opinions and figure out what's valid?
Okay. Okay, that's what I really wanted to know. I know Miss Bree said that all the kids are suffering, and she's absolutely right. But I sometimes think that society puts, especially on African American girls, and I'm not going to speak to all of them, but especially our African American young girls, I think society puts so much on them as of now. You know, back in the day, we had, you know, like Rap City, The Basement on BET, stuff like that. Nowadays, you know, we did have like Little Kim and all that, but now you got Nicki Minaj, you got
Megan Thee Stallion, City Girls,
right? You got all of these, and then on top of that, that's just one form of African American girl. You still have, you know, there's so many different, and trying to. I just think it's hard, and the reason I say that is I have 3 beautiful daughters, man, and all 3 of them kind of deal with this, you know, and they're all pointing to a certain quote unquote superstar on who they kind of resonate with, you know, and I tell them all the time, you know, yeah, that's cool, but they not you. You know what I mean? And you know, and you're not them, and be the best you can be, you know, and what God's given you. You don't have to be them to be quote unquote popular, you know, and you don't know what they have done to become popular. Are you willing to pay that price?
Right? Are you really walk through that door?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Pandora.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is good, man. Let's take another commercial break. When we come back, let's talk about getting over your opinion of your own self, and then let's deal with arrogance versus confidence, and humility versus low self-esteem right here when we come back on the next 15.
Hey, this is Andrea Clark. Tune in next Friday at 7 p.m. as I co-host part 2 of the series, Who Am I? Entitled In Peace, Not in Pieces, where I'll be talking about relationship abuse and how it can affect your self-esteem and how to overcome it. The guys and I will be talking about the warning signs, how it can affect your household, and much more. Hey ladies, let's talk about how we can take back our peace without being in pieces. Next Friday, live at 7 p.m. on the Next 15 podcast show.
You're listening to the Next 15 podcast show with Trey North on Spreaker.com. Welcome back to the Next 15 podcast show. Looks like we got a caller that's calling in. Caller, this is Trey North. Who am I speaking to and where you calling from?
What up, fellas?
Hey.
Rod Garrett calling from Houston, Texas. What's going on?
Hey,
All
Rod,
right,
what's going on, man? Did you have a comment tonight?
Yeah, man. Hey, I wanted to speak to Chris's question about, the difference, is there a difference between the boys and the girls on, how they deal with this topic. So I can see it from two perspectives. One, I was a kid who grew up in a broken home where my dad wasn't there, my grandfather had passed, and I was in a very matriarchal type of family structure. Had to move in with my grandmother, right?
Okay.
And so it was one of those situations where it was like, I was an introvert pretty much up until maybe freshman year of high school.
Okay.
And the way I dealt with a lot of, and I always took the comparisons, like, some positive, some good, like don't be like your dad, or don't be like your brother, or you're nothing, or you should be like this person, like that person. So I was kind of lost, and without an outlet to express it, because I know young boys, especially teen boys, are not as expressive, or not. I don't think they feel maybe they have a safe space in order to communicate how they feel. I know, at least I did, because if there's an absentee of a like I say, a male figure in the home,
Right.
then his expectation is, well, be tough. You know what I'm saying? You got to be tough. This where it's hard knocks out here, and so how does the preteen or teen boy respond to that? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then now what I also notice is that there is a lot of pressure, especially in that aspect, to aspire to be great, but a lot of times there is like, well, how do you do that? I don't know if y'all remember the one young man who was, I think, a junior or senior in high school in the state of Georgia. He was like a top prop five recruit, but he committed suicide and stepped in front of a train because he felt so much pressure to pull his family out of poverty.
Oh, wow.
And so I just feel like for young boys, I think it's different, because I don't think by social norms there's a safe space that they feel that is created for them to talk about that.
That's good, Rod.
That's very interesting when we talk about male and men's mental wellness. Actually, everybody, Rod is actually going to be on our final episode of this Who Am I series, talking about men's mental wellness, because that is something that pretty much we don't talk a lot about.
Right.
And it's a silent killer.
Yeah, absolutely. Across the board, man. And I'm talking inside and out, like inside and outside of church. It's not talked about. Period.
Yeah.
Well, fellas, I appreciate it, man. Hey, I love this topic, man, and love, of course, the show. And man, this is a great topic, especially maybe around this time of year, just in general. To be able to have these type of dialogues, man. And I thank y'all for using the platform to do so.
Hey, man, thanks you very much, man. We appreciate you, man.
All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was Rod Garrett, owner of baldbeardedblessed.com. Check it out. nice T-shirts, apparel. He's got the beard oil for your Kimbo Slice look, Pastor Chris.
Boy, Kimbo Slice. We throwing shade already, bro.
I mean, what would it be the next 15 without some shade?
I got you, bro.
He brought up some interesting topics. Yep.
I just that's hilarious.
Yeah, so let's talk about. Hold on,
we got one more call.
Okay, hold on. Welcome to the Next 15 podcast show. This is Trey North. Who am I speaking with, and where you calling from?
Hi, this is Gail from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Hey, Gail.
Hi, Gail.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well. What's your comment or question or what you have for us tonight? Talk to us.
Okay, I was going to speak on. I know in the comments I had put that I think women in general do a lot more comparison amongst themselves than men. I think with women it shows up in how we style our hair, the clothes we buy.
Okay.
You often hear women say, or the phrase you hear people say, women don't dress for men, you dress for other women. Because a lot of times you have that competition and you're seeking that validation. Well, if people say I look good and I outdress her, or my hair or my weave or whatever looks better than the next person, it also shows up. And I think in who we date sometimes, if you see this circle of friends of different people dating this type of man or marrying a certain type of person, you tend to go towards that. But then you might find yourself in a situation where, man, that really isn't for me. I'm looking at it through a lens of what everybody else has. And so you'll find yourself, I'm buying a house in a neighborhood that I can't afford. I'm sending my 2.5 kids to schools that I can't afford to send them to. We go to this type of church, and we follow these patterns, and then we sit back in our life all of a sudden. It's not the life, like, you said you're doing this with credit to God. It's not the life that you're supposed to live because you're trying to keep up with everybody else's race and not your own. And so you might end up being in a whole lot of debt as a result of this, and a whole lot of relationship trauma and everything else. And now your kids all of a sudden have, these self-esteem issues and things like that because you led this certain type of life. So I just think sometimes with women for sure, because I am a woman obviously, but I think women for sure, we definitely do that comparison thing to the point where we tear each other down about it. But on the flip side of that, though, I think if you get into a good group, a circle of women that are your, friends in general, what ends up happening is, you see, oh, my girl got her hair looking a certain way, or you start, picking up tidbits and things from people, or that one friend, she dressed real fly, so if I wanted to change up my style and say, I just want to look a certain way this time, I'm going to go to this friend, because this is the one that does X, Y, and Z, or this friend got out of debt, so I'm going to go to her to ask her about some, financial decisions I'm making. So you kind of can use it to your advantage when you're looking at people that have different things than you have in life. But that's just my opinion.
Ooh, you speaking facts over here.
You are speaking facts. That's heavy.
Yeah, that's heavy. Yeah, that's real talk.
Go ahead, Gail.
She went down into the financial realm.
Right. Absolutely. Because
Gail, you wrote that down, didn't you? You called and you had that written down, didn't you? Shit, I want to make 3 or 4 points
life,
on
man.
this.
It's life. It's life, man. It happens. It's life. This is what people are out here doing.
You know what? That's what I love about you, all of the listeners, because you guys have. This is just 3 guys sitting here in the studio with our perspective based on our life experiences. But there are so many people out there with different experiences, and they have a different perspective. Right. And being able, man, this is so great. And I so thank y'all, you and Rob, for calling in, because it gives a whole different dynamic. Yeah. I mean, another perspective to think about, something that we didn't even think about.
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's good, Gail. Thank you.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Great talking to you guys.
Thank you
so
very
much.
All right. God bless.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Bye. Wow.
Yeah, man. When she brought up the inner circle, and then Bree said something. She said it's sad but true. But being intentional about who is in the inner circle, like your inner circle, the opinion of your inner circle, we don't really think about it. Like it was your homeboys, your homegirls, and when she started saying that, sometimes even to the point, the person that you date and marry and where you live is all based on the opinion of your inner circle.
Ooh. That's nasty.
we don't think about that, but she's absolutely positively correct, even to the church that you go to.
Yeah.
So the inner me is created by my inner circle. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times some friends have a tendency of judging you or put an opinion on you based on what they think you should be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about acceptance.
Yeah. So you're in love with the mailman, but your friends think that you should date the executive.
Right.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like
That's
the mailman treats you exactly the way you want to be treated and all that, but he just doesn't have the money as the executive because your two homegirls, they date CEOs.
Oh man, that's hitting home right now for me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Ooh-wee.
That's crazy, bro.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good.
Wow, that is good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Ooh, all
Thanks,
right.
Gail. That was good.
Yeah,
Thank you so very much.
That threw me for one. We were gonna talk. That just threw me, man. God, getting over your opinion of your own self.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So getting over your opinion of your own self is first to heal and to I think we all have to come to a point to where we evaluate ourselves, our thoughts, our beliefs, and we have to put ourselves in check. And it needs to come before you, like Gail said, before you wind up broke because you're out here chasing the Joneses. And so I think, we have to come to grips with who we are. And you got to sit down at some point and ask yourself, why was I put here? Because I'm just one of these people who strongly believe that you are not alive for no reason. If you are still living and breathing and talking, you are alive for a reason. And I almost can guarantee you it is not to compare yourself to someone else. It is not for that reason. And so with that being said, when we get to the overall thick of things, when you get to the overall scheme and thick of things, you have got to come down to your opinion and how you feel about yourself. Because if you know how you feel about yourself, then you won't be running around like a leaf in the wind, blowing in this direction and blowing in that direction. And so it's very important to know who you are.
You know what? That just brought something to mind. And I know earlier in the show I was talking about taking the opinions of those who you deem credible, like your parents. But can I flip that for a minute? Yeah. Since we're talking about getting over your opinion of your own self, there has been times, and I'm not speaking from personal experience, but maybe I've seen it happen with other friends of mine, that some parents are angry. And they start saying things like, especially divorced parents, oh, you're just like your mother, or you're just like your father. And that places, opinion that's kind of embedded in us. And we have to get over that. We got to, because if you were told that as a child, you know what I mean? You're just like your daddy, no good. And, you're a liar. You ain't going to, you just like your daddy. All you do is lie, lie, lie. Then we start forming those types. We started actually acting that way. You know what I mean? We start believing those things and then now it becomes a part of our behavior. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, man, so it's coming up, man, we're so, and this is not just for kids. We get so programmable. Like when it comes to seeking validation or a type of credibility from others, it's like we're programmable and we tend to be the things that we hear, and then we start speaking those things. And then of course those things start actually happening. You know what I mean? The power of the tongue is so, it's powerful, man, and it can make us become something that we really aren't. You know what I mean? And that's just simply because the people that we love the most are feeding us to the point to the degree that, man, we start believing that. and taking on that behavior.
Absolutely. I will say this, man, and I'm going to come from kind of the pulpit real quick. And the reason why I say that is because you see this in a lot of preachers, man, is they start off with humble hearts, man, and as they elevate in the ministry, man, they're no longer the minister or the pastor or the preacher or the evangelist or the prophet that they used to be, because now the accolades have come, and now they are turning into the accolades instead of the individual. And so now now I have to put on a show because this is what they come to see. Now you're performing instead of ministering. And so that goes across the board, not just in the pulpit, but just with friends. Now, because you could be that friend, you might be that friend with money, and now you have to be you're the paycheck. So every time we go out to eat, I'm the one that's gonna pay. Why? Because I'm the one with the money. You see what I'm saying? Like it goes to that small stuff, and so they only want to go out to eat is if you with them. But if you're not with them, they don't ever want to go out to eat, you know? Like, no, I'm good. I'll just eat here at the house. You know what I mean? Or we can do something here at the house. But when you're around, and vice versa. And don't let people use, because people will use your insecurity against you.
Manipulation.
You know what I mean? Yeah, people will use your insecurity, and people read you just like you read people. Some stuff that you think people don't know about you, they know. They know you're insecure about that, or they know that that's how, or you are egotistical, and they'll use your ego against you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And so dude, this is all insane.
Yeah. Rod said something in the comments. He said some people see themselves as a demigod in their own eyes. It's pride.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, I was just going to that. I was just to flip that. About talking about arrogance versus confidence. Y'all want to let's deal with that.
Personally, I think, arrogance, I think arrogance comes from, people, like Chris said. I mean, you start getting a certain amount of fame, a certain amount of attention, and that can lead to arrogance, which is pride, and can lead to your downfall.
Right.
I think that you need confidence, and somebody can give you if somebody compliments me, like, for the simple fact of I've lost 40 pounds since June. I've lost 40 pounds. Now I hear people all the time saying, "Man, you look good, man. You've lost so much weight."
Yeah,
and I try to make it, and I don't know if this is bad or not, but I always try to say, "Thank you, man. It has been hard." Right, and I always try to make sure I say something like that, because I don't ever want to give the impression that I'm arrogant about it, or because life and death is in the power of the tongue. Right. So, the things that you start to say and the responses, if I were to say, "Man, thank you, man," I'm starting to see it myself. And I think comments like that can lead to arrogance, because then you start smelling yourself a little bit too much, So, but Mm-hmm.
So I think the difference between arrogance and confidence is confidence can always be educated. Arrogance takes on no information.
Ooh, that's nice.
And so when you're confident, you can be confident, and people still could be able to correct you and be like, "Hey, you're doing great," but and you're humble enough to be able to hear and accept that. Arrogance is saying that you're doing a great job, but when they go to try to help you further yourself, I mean, that criticism or constructive criticism, people that's doing something that you're trying to do, and you don't heed their warning. Now you have entered into the point of being arrogant, because arrogant people, the reason why they fall is because if you don't know how to build the next step, then you have nothing to step on to move up. So
Wow. Yeah. I think arrogance is a pride thing.
Absolutely.
I think arrogant people still seek validation. And it's a mask. It's a mask. In my opinion, it's a masquerade. You're still insecure, because you have to put yourself higher than someone else, and your nose has to be turned up higher than someone else. But confidence it really doesn't need a praise.
Right.
It doesn't have to have a praise.
Yeah.
It's simply what it is. It's confidence, and it's knowing who you are. It's being secure. So I look at confidence as I'm secure about who I am, and I have the confidence, but I'm not going to be prideful. I'm not going to cut somebody else down or chop them down and try to make them someone, to make them another version of me,
right.
A mini me,
just
out of pride. So I think confidence, like you said, it can be taught. You're teachable with confidence.
Yeah,
an arrogant person, I won't say no names.
Yeah.
That we see in this election.
Yeah.
That's arrogance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it that takes on a whole bunch of other characteristics that are less. A lot of people just don't desire.
Exactly.
It just sends off such a negative message toward other people.
Yeah.
When you're confident, man, you're secure about who you are. You're confident, and people can feel your confidence. But people can smell your arrogance, and they can see that from afar.
Yeah.
And I also want to say too, if I'm being honest, I was always kind of envious. Back in my hanging out in my clubbing days, I know I'm the only one in here who used to club. But anyway, I used to always be so envious of those guys who weren't very attractive, but they would walk up to literally any woman in the club with all kinds of confidence. I mean, and man, they would get some numbers. They really would. They would get some numbers.
Yeah.
And I was always kind of envious of that because I wouldn't even try. Like I see a woman and I wouldn't even try to approach a woman. And so I admire the confidence of people who are willing to step out and start their own business or start something and try to go that route. I think that takes a certain amount of confidence as well. So, yeah.
Well, you were obviously jealous of me, bro, because that's exactly what I used to do.
And
I'm just messing.
That sounds like arrogance.
Yeah.
That's arrogance. Now, there's an example of it, everyone.
I'm just saying.
But it's true.
It arrogance if it's true? Like, it's true. Like, that's it. I was exactly that dude.
So then it's not. So I like saying this. Let's put it into perspective. It's not arrogant on the way to the club to say, man, I'm gonna give me about 2 or 3 numbers tonight.
That's confidence.
Yeah, that's confidence.
That's confidence. So what does arrogance look like on the way to the club?
I feel like I know I'm gonna go up in here and I'm about to run through every last one of them, and I'm the best looking thing in there. And don't speak to me. What?
Right.
Please.
Like every female in here
wants me.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like every last one of you girls. Or
if you say I'm only talking to the yellow bones tonight, just
that's
all yellow bones.
Yes, sir.
That's
arrogance, brother.
That's arrogance.
Yeah. You know what I think? Just a sidebar. I think women, coming from a male perspective, they appreciate a confident male. So you might not be the best looking guy,
right?
In the club, but your confidence, it just says something about it. It's in sweet odor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think
yeah.
Wait, Bree says, I'm bringing me one back home tonight. That's what arrogance says.
That's arrogant. Might be bringing something else back. It might be bringing a dude back.
A shim.
Might be bringing some sausage back home.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. But you know what? To even go to that point, man, like I talk about, like, for me and my wife, man, like, again, I always say she was above my pay grade when I met her. You know what I mean? And I think it was my confidence. I know I wasn't the best looking guy that she's probably talked to.
Of course, Dwayne Johnson is.
Right? Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, just to give a little shout out, I mean, I ain't gonna say shout out, but there was a basketball player that tried to talk to my wife when we were living in Dallas.
Okay.
So that's how pretty my wife is. And so anyway, but yeah, when I met my wife, I was, I wasn't the best looking dude that she's ever talked to, but it was my consistency and my confidence. You know, I made her believe like you ain't the only pretty chick that I talked to. You know what I mean? And that was the actual truth. I mean, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, when you're confident, I think confidence is, again, like you said, people know the difference between confidence and arrogance, you know, because confidence will make time for the people that you needed to make time for. Arrogance is you only have time for yourself at that point.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about maybe the differences in humility and low self-esteem.
That's a good one. I think humility welcomes constructive criticism and opinions. Like you said earlier, Trey, you ought to be able to have a few people in your circle that you take advice from. And I think, you know, if a person has a great relationship with their mother, I think you should always be able to take advice from that person. And you should always be humble and not think that you have arrived, and always be searching to learn and know more, and you know, have somebody keep you where you need to be structured. And I think self-esteem is a form of just saying, you know, taking all opinions and still not believing them, and not having any confidence in yourself, low self-esteem, and not having any confidence in yourself whatsoever. And you know, you can kind of tell people with low self-esteem because it seems like they always use words like can't, or you know, not me, or you know, they always use words like that. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Okay.
What about you, Pastor Chris?
So, you know, I'm going to piggyback off of, you know, what Ty says. Like, again, when you're talking low self-esteem, you know, because sometimes I deal with this myself as of in, you know, being having humility and then low self-esteem. Because sometimes, again, my pastor told me one thing. He says, stop operating in false humility. Okay. Some of us use our humility to just get the woe is me feel, even when it's not necessary. And so now we're operating in that quote unquote false humility.
Give me an example.
So for instance, an example of false humility in my opinion is, okay, somebody comes to you and say, hey, hey Trey, this is a great podcast, right? And you be like, oh no, man, it's just okay, dude. But thank you. You're like, no, you have a great podcast. So the answer is just thank you. You know what I mean?
I get it because because humility is a humble. Having humility is being humble. Yeah. But you're saying the false part of it is like you said, instead of saying just taking that goes into another thing. Some people don't know how to take a compliment.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
And is that a self-esteem issue? You see what I'm saying?
You know what? That could definitely be. That could definitely be a self-esteem issue.
You don't know how to receive a compliment. I think I have some self-esteem issues now because it's hard for me to take a compliment because I do want to remain humble. Yeah, sometimes it is.
I'm saying it is. Like,
you telling me? Yeah, as my friend.
Yeah, as your friend. Like people can compliment you, and you be like, no, man. He still gets nervous before every show that we do. We have an excellent show. We really do. And he'll look at me and be like, why aren't you nervous? Because I'm like, I know exactly what we have.
Is that arrogance?
No, that's confidence.
That's confidence.
Yeah, that's confidence because I'm not saying nothing that's false.
I think you're right. I thank you should be my response. Yeah. Thank you very much. I don't have to be like, thank you very much. I know it is. Yeah, exactly. That's arrogance.
That's arrogance.
But I can say, you know what? I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for the encouragement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. So we've defined now that I got low self-esteem issues.
Oh, it's a lot.
Thank you for talking to the Next 15 podcast.
It's turned into a couch session, right?
I know. Like, forget the listeners. Hey, man, what's wrong with me? Oh man, what we got in the Anybody in the chat comment?
Yeah, Miss Shamika just said. She said that's so true. Some people are really don't know how to take a compliment because of the trauma or experience they have had. Sometimes they think that you are lying or trying to get something from them. That is actually a true statement.
And then Gail says, not being able to take a compliment is playing yourself small. I agree. Learn to simply say thank you so you don't negate it. That's real.
That's real.
And I think that, saying thank you is a form of humility,
Right.
and a form of confidence as well. And I think if a person compliments you, that should validate your confidence. And it should strengthen your confidence if a person is complimenting you. But when you always have just like somebody say, "Girl, you got on a nice dress," and you say, "This old thing, I got this from the thrift store."
Yeah,
well, we don't need to know all that.
Right.
Nobody would have knew that had you had not said that. So all you did was just validate the fact that you have self-esteem issues.
Right.
So,
right. That's true. That's true. Man, this has been great.
Yeah, this is good, man.
This is really good.
This is how we starting off, man. This is crazy.
Yeah, man.
What Bree just said, some dudes compliment women just to get their phone number. Of course,
that's it's called confidence.
But I can see where you're going with that, though. Because some dudes may, they compliment with intentions, with motives.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
Yeah, that is a podcast there.
Oh man, guys, we got to get ready to wrap it up. But before we go, we got some final comments. I'm gonna leave it in the hands of our co-producer tonight, Ty Hosey.
Yeah.
Any closing comments or thoughts that you might have?
I just want to say again, and I think we've been saying it all night, is that when it comes to opinions, make sure they're rooted and grounded in purpose, and make sure you know your purpose and you are searching for your purpose. And anything that does not agree with your purpose, and anything that does not agree with the purpose that God has for you, that is not an opinion that you should accept.
That's awesome, man.
Chris,
I'm gonna go back and kind of again piggyback off of Ty, man. At the end of the day, change isn't change until it's changed. Listen, don't take constructive criticism from people that have never constructed anything, guys.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, because we take criticism and from people that haven't done anything, and especially haven't done anything that you're trying to do, like friends and family. As much as we love them, sometimes you got to step over them to get to your destiny.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you have to build your self-esteem and not allow others' opinions to define who you truly are. I think you got to be honest with yourself and just identify your self-worth. And, you got to base your identity on what the Word of God says about you.
Absolutely.
And then you also, it's very important that you surround yourself with people that'll build you up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I really, this has been great. Listen, guys, if you've enjoyed the show tonight, please share it with somebody. Tell them about the next15podcast.com. Yeah. Next week, you guys, we have a part 2, and we're going to have guest co-host Andrea Clark.
Hey,
and
Dr.
this episode, Dr. Clark, this show is entitled In Peace, Not in Pieces. And this will be the second part of our Who Am I 3-part series. So you don't want to miss Andrea Clark. She's going to come in the studio, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be a deep one. She's going to share some transparency with us about her past experiences and what it has caused her and who has it caused her to be today. And she's got a deep story, so I'm definitely excited about that episode. Listen, go to next15podcast.com. Follow us at next15podcast at IG, Facebook, and on Twitter. You can also catch the live pre-shows that we do every Friday night at 6:30. We do it about 15 minutes, and then we head on over here to the Spreaker platform for the Next 15 Podcast Show. I'm Trey North. Ty Hosey, my guest co-host Chris McAllister. We'll see you guys on the Next 15.